is, the more agile you are. For example, the AX got a new stock that gives you super fast aims on sight speed, so the gun's overall strength jumped up a notch. Hipfire means shooting without aiming down sights, so the hipfire stat affects your bullet spread when firing from the hip, and it's closely related to your accuracy. For instance, the VS and AN-94 really stand out in this area, so their hipfire feels a lot better. There's also a weapon's negative attribute bonus, which you can figure out from the stats panel. For example, the Vector has a movement speed bonus when you're up close, so if you pair it with the leg fix perk, crouching on enemies feels a lot smoother. The Ferrule short barrel boosts movement, making minimap fights feel better, but the H4 long barrel slows you down for higher damage, accuracy, and range, so it's worth the trade-off. You might think a short barrel on the H4 would be even better for mobility, but remember your bullet damage and burst power are already low. Using a short-barreled Pharaoh against a 6.1, it still deals 80 damage, but an H4 against a 9995 only deals 50. You can't compete. If you accept this drawback, go ahead. 8th is weapon weight, which many overlook. Heavier gear slows you down. For example, if you're too heavy, flanking with a gun doesn't work because you're too slow, but flanking with a knife leaves you vulnerable to ambushes without time to react. Some weapons have perks. For example, the August, its burst is powerful, a huge plus. Despite its wild recoil pulling up left and making long-range shots tough, it's less of an issue at mid-range. Consider weapon stats. Take the F2000 and AEK. Despite high initial recoil, a major flaw, they're great value. With the right techniques, you can offset that downside, minimizing the impact. If a weapon has great perks, some of its flaws can be ignored. Finally, there are guns that are great right out of the box, or only need a minor tweak to be usable. If a gun has high stats, even in its base form, that's definitely a plus. Now that we understand the specific attributes, we know how to score them. You rate each individual attribute, then add up all the scores to get the weapon's final rating. Let's look at some scoring examples. Take the classic M4. It was super popular. For mid to long range, just swap the sight for a scope and you're set. If you do a partial upgrade, the cost effectiveness of its attachments is really high. For just 50 or 60,000, its stats are already pretty solid, making it great for close quarters combat. But where does it lose points? First off, it's the ammo. Now that structural strength has been added, if you use A1 rounds with the M4, running into someone with level 4 armor is basically a life or death situation. You probably don't want to be flashing that white light all the time, right? Plus, its rate of fire is only 800, which honestly isn't quite enough if you're trying to go for leg meta. Plus, ammo prices have gone up now. With that kind of money, why wouldn't I just spend an extra 10 or 20 grand to get a better August, right? So its cost performance is decent, but still not high enough. As a rifle, I'd give its damage a 3 out of 5, and its rate of fire is pretty good, maybe a 3.5. As for range, the 91 is pretty good, but if you look at its accuracy, the accuracy is just too low, so both only get a 2.5 out of 5. They go hand in hand. Regardless of range, low accuracy means missing shots. Ergonomics are average with mods, so I'll give it a 2.5. With no real negatives, I'd give it a 3. When it comes to weight, out of 4, I'd give it a 3. As for highlights, overall, this gun actually performs pretty well, so I'd give it a 4. In terms of features, you can use it with a scope, so that also deserves a 4. Hipfire at 77 isn't really enough because if you want to add a laser, you have to change the handguard, which is too much trouble, so it only gets a 2.5. As for the gun without any attachments, it's actually really good, so that's a 4. Out of a total score of 55, it can get close to 35 points. Wait, how is that not even half? Oh, there's also a special section, environmental bonuses. When judging how good a weapon is, besides its own score, you also have to consider the current combat environment. For example, to loot outside, I can use a scope and suppressor for any range. That's 4 points. If I need balance stats for close range, the AM40 is a cost-effective pick for another 3 points. Besides the rating, look at the usage scenario. Different situations add points, but they don't stack. Otherwise, every gun would have a crazy high score. The AM40 strength is its balance, but it doesn't really stand out. Beyond cost effectiveness, there's little else to note. But for close range fights, it's a solid choice. Now that you know the criteria, in future weapon guides, I won't repeat this. To save time, I'll just give the scores directly. Of course, different situations have different reference points, so you'll need to adapt flexibly. A little teaser, the first weapon we'll talk about is the AEK. I wonder how many of you are fans of it. After we finish talking about the AEK, which weapon do you want to see next? Feel free to leave your answers below. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. More tutorials are coming soon. I'm Lero. See you next time. Bye.